Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and tonight we are back with another episode of Midnight Movies. So pop that tape in, I got you, let's go do this. Well, it's late night Saturday night again, boys and ghouls out there in TV land. It's almost the witching hour. Time when the veil between this world and the spirit world is its thinnest. It's a time for monsters, a time for mischief, and a time for the Midnight Movie with Chase here at AV Pop Culture. All right, we are back with episode 3 of our Midnight Movie series. If you are new, this is the series where we explore all of those late midnight movies, those sort of grindhousey, B horror, schlock horror, sexploitation, exploitation films that are not fit to see during normal daylight and evening hours. These are the movies that we find in the midnight movies. And for me, it always conjures up images of this old small town movie theater that we used to have. It was a little 2-screen theater, kind of in a part of town that's sort of starting to get a little bit abandoned, kind of creepy to go to if you were there on like a fall evening around Halloween and the leaves are blowing through the parking lot and there's only a few cars there and there's a old marquee out there and it's still kind of half lit up, but some of the letters are missing, and you go inside and there's the smell of like old stale popcorn, and the floors are sticky with beer and Coke that's spilled, and you got to kind of walk through the popcorn and stuff that nobody has bothered to sweep up on your way to the seats, that half were torn cushions and some of the seats were let down and some were up, and maybe the screen had a couple of holes or tears in it and the roof was leaking, and it didn't matter because once that projector started rolling and they fired up that midnight movie, it fit in perfectly with where you are. And tonight, where we are is here watching Paul Verhoeven's misunderstood, critically panned, complete box office flop, career-killing masterpiece, Showgirls.
So what are you going to Vegas for? You gonna win?
I'm gonna dance.
From the creators of Basic Instinct, the last time they took you to the edge. This time, they're taking you all the way.
We take the cash, we cash the check, we show them what they want to see.
Showgirls. Leave your inhibitions at the door.
Now, I definitely believe this film fits in with the Midnight Movie series. It is one of those films, and we went over what I believe are the different types of midnight movies. There are those that were made to be midnight movies, complete, ridiculous and fun, over the top, like B horror movies, schlock horror movies. Then you have those sexually sort of erotic, Blood for Dracula type midnight movies, or The Last Horror Show. And of course, you have the Rocky Horror Picture Show. These movies that are specifically made for midnight movies. And then you might have something sci-fi crazy like War of the Worlds, or, was it Plan 9 from Outer Space, or whatever. And of course, like Night of the Living Dead or Pink Flamingos, these movies that are tailor made for this. And then you have those grindhousey sort of really like things that inspired Tarantino, like Thriller, A Cruel Picture, that we'll get into eventually here on Midnight Movies. And they're films that weren't they were made to be midnight movies, or they were never made to be taken seriously. And then you have films like Showgirls, which is definitely a fantastical, bright, vibrant film with star power at the director's spot. And it has that sexploitation aspect to it big time. But it was a film that was absolutely taken seriously at the time. And that may have been part of its downfall. But later on, it found its home with the cult fans. It became a cult hit and has made more and more and more money and gotten more and more beloved as it's gone on. And that is a whole other type of midnight movie. And that's where Showgirls fits in. And I actually think it is pretty much a masterpiece by Paul Verhoeven. And it is unfairly labeled as a career killer that kind of put Verhoeven in Hollywood jail and kind of derailed Elizabeth Berkley's career before it ever got going. This film has it has all the elements of a grindhousey film. It has a rape scene that is very hard to watch and questionable whether it needs to be in there or not. So you definitely get the exploitive nature there. It is filled with nudity and sex and all the excess played up to turned up to 11 by Verhoeven about Las Vegas. It's like Las Vegas life on steroids. I've heard it called like the Scarface of Vegas showgirl movies, and you can kind of see that. I think it's a completely misunderstood film. It has some dialogue in there, some one-liners, and things like that that are absolutely crazy. And we're going to get into it. So let's jump in right now.
You don't want to piss me off, darling, now that we're friends.
No. You shouldn't get pissed off. It makes you look older.
So if you haven't seen Showgirls, it stars Elizabeth Berkley in the main role as Nomi. And Nomi is a girl from nowhere who is coming to Las Vegas to make it big as a showgirl. So she wants to be a Las Vegas dancer or a showgirl, and she's coming to make her way. And from the jump, things don't go well for her. She hitches a ride to Vegas with a guy that can only be assumed to be going to be an Elvis impersonator. And she makes the mistake of trusting him right off the bat, and he leaves her stranded and steals her luggage, the only thing she has to her name. And she's fortunate enough to meet someone who becomes a friend in the parking lot. And that person gives her a place to stay, and she's able to get a job and start to make her way in Vegas. Well, what job does she get? No, she doesn't go into becoming a prostitute, but she does become a stripper. And this is where we start to get layers to this movie that we'll talk about in a little bit. But the first 20 minutes of this movie, if you take them on face value and you take them for being serious, then of course you're going to pan this movie, because Elizabeth Berkley in this movie, and it's really even way to a higher level in the first like 20-30 minutes of this movie, she can only be described as a overgrown, temperamental 12 or 13-year-old girl trapped inside a woman's body, and she is prone to ridiculous temper tantrums and stupid mistakes and what comes off to being way over the top acting. And I was watching it and I'm like, people attack her acting and they're like, she's a terrible actress. She's so overacting. And I was like, I started thinking about it. It's so over the top. It's so over the top. It's so over the top that it can only be there if the director directed her to do that. And so as I prepared for this midnight movie video, I started researching it. And I found that indeed Paul Verhoeven, the director, now Paul Verhoeven's coming off RoboCop, Basic Instinct, Total Recall. He has all of these, big movies that he's done, and he's coming off of those. And so, of course, he's got his specific vision, and he admitted all of that acting, all the pushing it way over the top, the way crazy temper tantrums, and just what comes off as over the top acting was his choice. He pushed Elizabeth Berkley to do it because he wanted everything in this movie to be way, way over the top and kind of like Vegas and the Vegas showgirl life on steroids. He wanted it to be, if Vegas is here and Vegas is already turned up to a 9 or 10, he wanted it crunk up to a 12 or a 13. He wanted everything to seem so excessive, so over the top, so ridiculous. The lights, the acting, the way she did everything. He wanted all of it so over the top. The dialogue so over the top, and we're going to get that in a minute. That it was just excess, excess for the sake of excess. And so it's not really fair to pan her acting because she was just doing as she was directed. The problem is the movies that I just mentioned. And if you watch the trailer for this movie, the trailer itself mentions Basic Instinct, which is a very serious erotic thriller. It might be over the top in violence, but it's not over the top in like excess and ridiculousness. It's not, it is a very serious, grounded film. And then you have RoboCop that was also over the top in violence, but it had all these serious, messages and satire in it. And the problem there is, if you watch the trailer mentions that in Basic Instinct, he took you to the edge. And in Showgirls, he's going to take you over it.
From the creators of Basic Instinct, the last time they took you to the edge, this time they're taking you all the way.
So see, right there, it is setting you up to think that this is a serious Basic Instinct thriller type film. So you're going into the film with the wrong idea completely of what this movie is. So you have unfair expectations of the film as a whole, but of the actress and everything else. So if you go into it and you're expecting Sharon Stone and, the cast of Basic Instinct, Michael Douglas, in all this serious gravitas that is in Gene Triplehorn, where it's mixed in with, sex and violence and gritty crime drama thriller whodunit. And then you get Showgirls, which is excess Las Vegas showgirl stripper lifestyle played up to a caricature level on purpose. Then you compare it to what you think it's supposed to be, so it has no chance at ever succeeding. And that's what happened. In my opinion, that's 100% what happened. But when you really watch this film, it has a lot of layers to it, and it has dialogue that is pretty interesting and right on, just just frank dialogue that will tell you. It's almost like the characters, if you've ever been in any situation where you wanted to say something and the thought ran through your mind, but you filtered it out for your own protection and for the protection of those around you and the situation of those around you. It's as if the dialogue took that filter away. And there's something pretty engrossing about that. It took the filter away from behavior. Elizabeth Berkley, she throws temper tantrums. She gets mad. She throws things around. She slams her food down. She does all these ridiculous over the top gestures because she has no filter. And it does come off as childlike in that way because children don't have filters the same way that adults do. And I think that that's pretty much it. She is a child. She has a child's mentality, and she's trapped in this sexual body in this crazy lifestyle. So she has no filter, but she also has, she's just basically the id principle, the I want, without any kind of thoughts of repercussions of how she acts or anything else. That's brought out in her actions, but it's brought out in the dialogue as well. Of course, though, she uses the one thing she has to get what she wants. She uses her body. She uses her sexuality, and that lands her being a stripper. And it's very interesting because Robert Davi plays the strip club owner, and he's almost like a father figure to her, a perverted feeling, what turns out to be a father figure in some ways. And there's something I will point to here in just a few minutes that I think kind of sums up the whole movie that probably 99.9% of people miss. But he's almost like this protective figure over her, even though he is sleazy, 100% sleazy. And then there is like a mom style figure that works at this strip club that Nomi is close to. And yes, Robert Davi has her go and strip naked and do lap dances and things she doesn't want to do necessarily. But is he as bad as the people that she ultimately goes to work for? Well, I don't think so. And that's what is interesting. I think that's part of the thing Paul Verhoeven was going for. Now, Paul Verhoeven is known as the Dirty Dutchman. Like, that's what I call him. That's what I've seen him called before. And he has no bones, no bones about it when it comes to, nudity, sex, violence. He's all about it. And this movie's not short on it. Elizabeth Berkley is naked probably 70% of the time in this movie. She's at least topless that much. And there are other shots where you have women actresses who are strippers that are like crawling around and dancing, and it is very explicit what it shows. But again, it's because he's trying to turn this up to just ridiculous levels of craziness. And as it goes, she gets an opportunity to leave the strip club and go and work as a showgirl in the Stardust, casino. And she gets the job. And again, here though, she almost loses it on day one because she has a temper tantrum like a child. She has everything going for her in the audition, and she just explodes and, smacks ice out of the dance director's hands, runs off, stomping away like a child. That's how she acts. That's how he wanted her to act. And there is a reason you come to find out that Nomi's father killed her mother and committed suicide, and she's been having to be on her own and be a prostitute and all kinds of things to make it. But she was left on her own at a early age, so she's almost arrested development with no parental figures. So the only thing she has is her body, and she never learned to be an adult. So she doesn't act like one. And even when she has sex in the movie, if you really watch, there's the infamous pool scene and the lap dance scenes. She does this in a cartoonish way that's just so over the top, because it's almost like someone with no experience. They like watched a porno film or something and thought that this is how all sex is supposed to be, so they just repeated what they saw instead of having a connection and being mentally mature enough and knowing what you're doing in that way. It's because all of that keeps playing out in her actions. So she makes it onto this dance show, and of course it's topless and they're in thongs, and it's a classic story of the understudy who pushes the star out of the way and becomes the star herself. So there's no new ground that part with the story. That story's been done. But the way this story goes about it adds in way more sex and way more nudity and just way more kind of sleaze factor. Las Vegas, in a way, can already feel kind of sleazy. Prostitution's not necessarily illegal there. You've got gambling. There's casinos everywhere. A lot of people are pretending to be somebody they're not. And this is all just played up in the movie. So she leaves the strip club for this place, and this is the Stardust Casino and Hotel, and it's under the guise, everything about it makes it look classier and better and more on the up and up than where the strip club where she left. I mean, all the people she meets, they're highly educated, they're wealthy, they run this casino, there are these amazing costumes, there's thousands of people coming to see you perform weekly. But it is kind of pointed out a couple of different times in the movie. It's pointed out with dialogue before it gets to a back-to-back scene that kind of sums up what Paul Verhoeven's sort of underlying statement about people and is in this movie. Gina Gershon plays the star, Crystal, and she goes to lunch with Nomi, and she tells Nomi, she's like, "You're a whore. You do what they say, you take off your clothes, they give you the money, you show them what they want to see. You're a whore. We're all whores."
You are a whore, darling.
No, I'm not.
We all are. We take the cash, we cash the check, we show them what they want to see.
And she takes exception to that, but she misses the point because she's not mentally ready for that. As a matter of fact, she's very childlike with things. Like she gets and Verhoeven keeps pointing this out, and I can't believe all these years that it was missed that she's supposed to be acting this way because of her character, not because Elizabeth Berkley's a bad actress. She pronounces Versace Versace. She pronounces Cristal champagne as crystal. She's very childlike. She doesn't know. She doesn't even know what she doesn't know because she's like a child, and that she acts that way. She acts like an overgrown child. When she doesn't get her way, she explodes. She cries. She throws a tantrum. And she thinks that over here, I'm going to be an adult. This is all up and up. I'm part of this extravagant show at this reputable casino and hotel. But in the end, it's almost more dishonest than the strip club. And that's pointed out by her would-be boyfriend, who really doesn't have a really huge pertinent part to this film. And I can't remember the actor's name. He's a really good actor. But he kind of keeps popping up, and he keeps telling her she's a talented person. She needs to focus. But when he finds out that she's become a showgirl at this place, he also tells her she's a whore, and what she's doing now is worse than what she was doing because it's a lie. At least when she was at the strip club, it was, you knew what, nobody pretended to be something other than they were. The customers were there to see you strip and to give them lap dances. They gave you money in exchange for it. You knew what they wanted from you. They knew what they wanted from you. You knew what you wanted from them. And there was no pretension. There was no pretending to be something else. It was all there in the open. And while sleazy, and it may not have made her feel good, it was honest, and she knew exactly what it was. Over here, you have these people who are pretending, and they're hiding behind education and money and fancy cars and houses and friendships with famous people and all of these things in this beautiful show and these costumes and choreographers and all this stuff. But in the end, they're still paying you to dance and take off your clothes. But the only difference is they're pretending it's something else. Those people are still there to watch you dance and take off your clothes, and you're still being paid for that. But it's under the pretense of something fancier, better, more okay. And I think that's what Paul Verhoeven's kind of getting to with this whole movie is you can pretend to be something else, but it's better to just be honest about who you are and what you're doing than pretend to be something else and still do the same thing anyway. Because then that also makes you dishonest, and it makes you pretentious, and it makes you disingenuine. Whereas, if it's straight on the up and up, A plus B equals C, you might not like it, but you know where you stand on it. And I think this whole thing is summed up the best where there's two scenes back to back. Scene one, she is dating the guy who has, he lets her know he has an MBA and he's the head of the running the show there for the dance, for the casino. And she gets pushed into going with someone else connected to the casino under the guise of she's just supposed to go with this other girl, and they're supposed to go to this promotion and dance on this boat. And that's all they're supposed to do, and it's going to be $1,000. So they're pretending it's all in the up and up. You're just supposed to be a pretty girl and dance on this boat and help market this at this convention. Then she gets there, and again, now it was under a guise of something else, pretending to be something else. What they really want is for that $1,000 is for her and the other girl to spend the night with them. And she gets angry about that and runs out and goes and tells the head of the show. And he makes this big production about calling the guy and having him come out there. And he gets on to him and he threatens him. And he tells him, you better never do this again, or you'll never have a job. You'll never work here. All your retirement will be gone. Everything else. And plays the white knight, and the guy leaves. And so she feels all better, and she thinks this guy is the greatest in the world, and he's protecting her. And then as soon as she's out of sight, he calls the guy back and he's like, of course I wasn't serious. Get your dumb ass back up here. It was all for show. And that's the whole point, that all of this is a show to cover up the fact that you're still just being paid to dance and take off your clothes. And that scene is immediately followed up with her strip club manager, Al, played by Robert Davi, and the mother figure, and I can't remember her name, from the strip club. They are there to come and see her because they saw her show, and they talk to her. And this is one of those lines of dialogue, but I mean, it's honest from the type of guy this is. But they tell her, basically that they love her and that they're proud of her and that she did well and that she's beautiful. They might be sleazy and they might be all this, but they actually cared about her. They didn't pretend to be something else. The guy just pretended to be her white knight and he wasn't. These people never pretended to be her white knight. They never pretended to be anything else, but they did care about her. And it's just juxtaposed one right after the other. And, I think that's the whole point of the movie. These people were exactly what they said they were. And these people are pretending to be something else, but they're no better than these people. And in fact, they may be worse because they're dishonest about who they are. And I think that is the big point that he's trying to make in the movie. And to drive that home, it's another one of those lines of dialogue. Robert Davi, this is not his world. He doesn't pretend for this to be his world. His character, he turns to her and he says, it must be weird to dance like this and not get cum on you. I mean, he's...
Saw the show. You were good.
Thank you, Al.
Real good. You take care, kid. Must be weird not having anybody come on you.
That's his, he's like, well, she's still dancing and taking off her clothes, but this other stuff's not happening. It must be kind of weird because he's not pretending to be anything else. He doesn't have the pretentiousness of these other people. He's not going to pretend to be something he's not. This is his experience. This is who he is. He cares about her and is protective of her in his way, but this is just who he is. Whereas this guy over here pretended to be something else to get what he wants out of her, because then the very next scene after that is the infamous pool scene where he sleeps with her. And it just gets worse from there, and it takes more of a sexploitation angle from there, because the sex scene is so over the top, and again, it's like someone with no experience watched a porno and thought that's how you're supposed to have sex, and I think that was the point of it, but it does become very exploitive at that point, and very much a midnight movie in that way. And then you have right after that, things escalate. She then is trying to get the lead position, and the lead dancer is angry that she slept with the guy and that she's kind of getting looked over now. And so she stops Elizabeth Berkley from getting to be her understudy. So again, she's just an id girl. I want. She is a child in her mind. So what does she do? She throws a temper tantrum and shoves Gina Gershon down the stairs, breaks her leg. She's out. She's done. Now she, Nomi, is the star of the show. And she never thinks about the repercussions of it until later. She's going to learn a really hard lesson, and she goes again. Now this guy, they're for celebration for her getting this role. Now they have this party. The guy who pretended to be her white knight, he has this party, and there's these famous people there that, and one of them is a famous person that her friend wanted to meet and is a big fan of. And she begins to hook up with him, and everything is great. And he takes her friend to her room, and it looks like everything is going good and consensual. And the next thing you know, he calls his buddies in. They beat her. There is a horrific, very midnight movie style, like worse than Last House on the Left in a lot of ways, sexual assault scene. And they're going to completely get away with it. And Elizabeth Berkley, again, she's naive. She thought this guy is her big protector. These people are rich and wealthy, and they are classy, and they're above and better than these people I left. And they're not. They're in fact worse, because they can pretend to be something else and get away with it. And when she's at the hospital with her friend, her white knight tells her nothing's ever going to happen to those guys that did this, because they're protected. They're part of the show. And then he begins to threaten her because he has went into her past and found out she used to be a prostitute and all of this stuff. And he's using it against her. Now, those people that she left that she thought were so bad, they didn't care. They didn't care who she was before or anything else. They just cared that she worked there, that she was around, that she was okay. They show in the beginning, they have like a bouncer that won't even let someone watch a lap dance happening if they're not being paid for it. They give all of these warnings about what can and can't happen, about being touched and all this kind of stuff. And they mean it. They wouldn't have let that slide, because that's not how they operate. They're not going to try to cover things up. They're going to protect their girls because the girls mean something to them. To this place, they're nothing but cattle. They're money. And they'll find somebody else. So she learns a very, very hard lesson there. I mean, it's not like the guy she left, the place she left, they were great. I mean, they're honest. And he even tells one of the girls, like, if you want to last a week, you should probably blow me. He doesn't spend all this time pretending to be her white knight and setting up fake phone calls and all this kind of stuff just to have sex with her. He tells the girls, like, hey, I would recommend that you do this. This is what I expect. And it's not clear they ever did that with Elizabeth Berkley's character, but like, there was never any wondering where you stood with him. It was a question whether he was serious or not. He may not have been serious, because they kind of chuckle. They kind of like make it a funny spot.
You want to last longer than a week, you give me a blowjob. First I get you used to the money, then I make you swallow.
Was he serious?
But you don't know, but he's still, honest, and he's still just like a blunt instrument about it. And he's not duplicitous. And she gets really exposed to the duplicitous nature of people. And all of this story of these hard lessons are told through a sexploitation film filled with excess. And I think that's what makes Showgirls a perfect midnight movie. The dialogue, the dancing, the sex scenes, all of that kind of stuff is exactly what this genre of midnight movies is. Now, this doesn't fit in with the B movies. It doesn't fit in with really like super grindhousey films like Thriller, Cruel Picture. It doesn't fit in with that kind of stuff. This fits in with films that was originally taken seriously and maybe shouldn't have been taken so seriously, but was very mainstream and flopped, and then found its audience later with the fans and as a cult hit and as a midnight movie style cult hit. But ultimately, I think what did this movie in is that it wasn't thought of as that from the start, that it wasn't thought of as a over the top B movie type of excess, tongue in cheek, almost the way Oliver Stone is over the top in the movie Any Given Sunday, like with eyeballs popping out and people like just so over the top. That's kind of like what this is. And unfortunately, it was taken and put in the same category of expectations as Basic Instinct. And that's not what it is. And it set it up for failure. But now, all these years later, it is finding new life, and people are kind of seeing all these things that I'm saying. And I feel very bad for Elizabeth Berkley. Like, this movie had a $45 million budget. She got paid $100,000. And then 10 years later, they did a big DVD box set of this, and they were filming all these extra features and interviews, and they wanted her to come out and do these different interviews and filming like documentary style featurettes for the extra features. And she asked to be paid $2,500, and the studio told her no, that they wouldn't even pay her $2,500. And that, I mean, they put her face and her body nude from the side on the cover, and they wouldn't give her $2,500 for it to do extra features. The movie cost $45 million. It made around $40 million at the box office, but it has now made over $100 million in video sales and rentals and all that kind of stuff since then. So the fact that she only got paid $100,000 and they wouldn't even give her $2,500 to do extra features, to me, is gross. And the fact that she took so much blame and it hurt her career so much for a movie just because the critics didn't understand it, and it was brought and explained to the fans with the trailer and all of that kind of stuff, the marketing, incorrectly. And she took the brunt of it. Now, Paul Verhoeven kind of got put in Hollywood jail a little bit too from it. But he said, honestly, that he normally doesn't like to watch any of his movies. He doesn't like his movies once they're over. But this is one of the ones that he does. And this is one of the only ones that he'll watch again and again and again. So he said if he had it to do over again, maybe he would make it a little more Basic Instinct-like, but that's not what he was going for. He was going for the excess. Just like Nomi is excessive. She's like a child. She only wants to eat fast food. She throws temper tantrums. She wants sex if she wants sex, and then she does it in a cartoonish style. She wants the job that she wants. She wants the look how she wants. She wants her dress, and she wants it now. He used her to play a kid in a candy store. And then she got panned for it by critics and fans because they did not understand that. It was very misunderstood, and they just looked at it the wrong way, when all along it should have had a home as a midnight movie. And that is our episode this week. Showgirls, Amazing Vinegar Syndrome, 4K there with the VSU. And I really hope you enjoyed this. I like doing the midnight movies. We're probably going to do Thriller, A Cruel Picture here soon. Maybe From Beyond, Sorceress, Sweet Sugar. We got a lot planned. If there's any one that you guys would like to see me do, let me know. And I've actually considered maybe doing this show live too. So we could maybe think about doing that late nights on Saturday nights. But you guys let me know. And if you have enjoyed this, please do me a favor and like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Consider joining the channel and you'll get all kinds of behind the scenes looks at my movies and filmmaking and shout outs and all those kind of things. The same if you follow the link and join my Patreon. I can get a little more midnight movie and a little more R-rated with some of the stuff I can post from my movies and different things like that on Patreon. But you don't have to do any of that to hang around and be a part of the pop culture family and check out these midnight movies. Just like and subscribe, and I really hope you've enjoyed this midnight movie. Stay weird at the movies, get into all kinds of different things, and never forget, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon at the movies. See you later. I know.